Hello, fans and viewers, and welcome. This is the TheAireaidLord, and you are watching a very special video for my birthday, for my 19th birthday. Making this video the night before, just so I can have it all finished and wrapped up for my birthday. So this video is going to be about a very special topic, a topic that I hold very close to my heart as a gamer, because it is actually a game that means quite a lot to me. It is a unique game, a very unique game that I played more than 10 years ago at this point, because the 10-year anniversary was a couple of months ago. It is none other than, if you saw the intro, it is none other than Jak 2, the second game for the Jak and Daxter franchise made by Naughty Dog for the PlayStation 2 back in 2003. In Europe, it was called Jak 2 Renegade. I have no idea why, but it was no different. It was the same game, just the box cover was different. Like, it showed Jak being chased by Crimson Guards instead of the pose with the blue background that the American version had. So it was no different, but it was the same game, just a different name. So I am basically in this video going to be explaining why Jak 2 means so much to me as a video game, why it's my favorite game of all time, why it's one of the best games, innovation-wise, that I've seen from a video game pretty much ever in my video gaming history. Of all the games I've played for YouTube, and the games that I played before in my prior years of gaming, it is still a game that I hold in high regard amongst all other games, because for many reasons, and we'll get to all of those reasons. And, it basically, in a nutshell, comes down to Jak 2 delivering, for me, everything that I wanted from a gaming experience. It was diverse enough to offer a variety of things to the gamer. Now, before I get into that, what is Jak 2? You know, what would you call Jak 2 as a video game? If you've never played, some fans might be familiar with the franchise, some might not be. The HD collection for Jak and Daxter came out in early 2012. I did do a playthrough of all three of the major titles, the three from the trilogy. And then I did a speedrun of the first game over the summer. I was thinking of doing a speedrun of the second game for my birthday, but I don't have my PS2 with me. And Jak 2, admittedly, does take a while to beat, which we'll actually get to the reasons why Jak 2 actually took a lot of people. Some people, if you look on forums, haven't even beaten Jak 2, and we'll get to why that is. And when I was a child, it actually took me a while to beat Jak 2 as well. But we'll get to that. So basically, Jak 2, if I could explain it, is basically a third-person platforming action-adventure video game. It is a game in which you take the role of a guy, or a boy, a young boy named, or a teenager named Jak. Jak is, you can't really call him human. In this world, they don't really have a name for the species. It's like human, but their ears are like elf shaped, like their ears are really pointy and long, like elves. And almost every character in this game has this type of ear structure. And so Jak, you play as Jak, and then Daxter was originally this human-elf combination form, but as, you know, this is a spoiler, obviously, if you haven't played the first or second games, but Daxter fell into a pit of dark eco and was changed into what they call in this world, they actually have a name for it, unlike the blood elf things. They call it an Otzel. Daxter is an Otzel when he is transformed from the Dark Eco, and this is a major spoiler, which if you have not played Jak 3, do not listen any further for about 10 seconds, but basically, you eventually figure out that the Otzels are actually the precursors, because the precursors hold the essence of Eco, and the essence of Eco is what makes a precursor, so Daxter was actually blessed when he touched the Dark Eco, which is explained at the end of Jak 3, but that's a major spoiler in the game. But that's you play as Jak in this game. Jak is the main person you play as, and it's very weird because this game is named Jak 2. The first game in the Jak and Daxter trilogy was named Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy to insinuate that you played as both Jak and Daxter, but the funny thing is, you actually never play as Daxter in Jak 1. Jack and Daxter, the first one, the Precursor Legacy, is actually the only Jak and Daxter game, fun fact, out of the 3. I don't count Jak X as a game in the trilogy. It's not. It's a stupid spin-off racing game that has nothing to do with the story, and it was just thrown in there before Naughty Dog moved on to the next gen. Let's just get that out of the way. That's my feeling on Jak X. But Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, the first game, is the only Jak and Daxter game where you don't play as Daxter. In Jak 2, there are segments where you do actually play as Daxter, and in Jak 3, there are segments where you play as Daxter. Now, his attacks and his form of how he moves is very similar, if almost identical, to Jak. The only difference is he's like only a couple of inches tall. He's very small. He's a sidekick. He sits on Jak's shoulder for the majority, if not all, of the game, and when you do attacks, he's always there. He's clinging on to you, and he's there for you for all of your adventures. And there are some little puzzling parts of the platforming where you have to take control of Daxter in the second and third game to do certain tasks, to get past a certain level. There is one level in Jak 2 where they get separated and you have to do a segment as Jak alone and a segment as Daxter alone. And it's pretty cool, the diversity in that respect. But basically, to get back on topic, you play as Jak, and as a platforming game, there is, you guessed it, platforming. Platforming is the main focus. It was the main focus of Jak 1 and is the main focus of Jak 2. In Jak 2, there are many different platforming sequences, only this time, unlike Jak 1, now I'm going to be making a lot of comparisons to the first one because this is one of the reasons why the game is so great. Jak 2 takes the concept of Jak 1, and unlike being a direct sequel, because let's think of it this way. Ratchet & Clank, the first Ratchet & Clank, how did it change from the first to the second game? Really not much changed from Ratchet & Clank 1 to Ratchet & Clank 2, alright? You could pause the game when you held the triangle button to select your weapon, and you had a new diversity of weapons, and there was a bit of more centralization around armor and ship customization. There were a bunch of new features that made the game fresh and brand new, and I am no way in saying that Ratchet & Clank 2 is some sort of knockoff of the first one, or not really a true sequel, because it definitely is. It definitely has new features that make it a new game. But the core aspect of the game is not changed. You are still you're still Ratchet, going from planet to planet, doing missions on planets, using your weapons, now upgrading your weapons, buying them from vendors, and taking down enemies in a third-person shooting platforming, just like Jak and Daxter type of game. Jak 1 uses platforming, but it combines it with the eco powers, the blue, red, yellow, and green eco. It combines these powers. You have to use them in unique ways throughout the different levels. It also combines some driving stages in Jak 1, and then there's some other unique stages that are a bit unique to the game. But for the most part, Jak 1 is just a straight up platformer game, and you know what to expect. Jak 2, you would expect, like, once Jak 1 came out, Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy, you would have expected Jak 2 to be a direct sequel to the first one. You know, maybe Gall and Maya escape. Maybe you have to do something else in this kind of cartoony world. And just, it's some sort of continuation of the same cartoony E for everyone game. Because keep in mind, the first game was rated E for everyone. It was a kid's game. Jak 2 takes the concept, if I can explain this in the best way, Jak 2 takes the concept of the first game, flips it on its head, and fucking shoots a nuclear missile at it, and it implodes it, so that only a few pieces of the original concept are left. That is the best way I can describe what basically happened to the Jak and Daxter franchise. And it's in a good way. I don't mean that in a bad way that happened. I mean it in a completely positive way. I have never in my life, and I'll say this for any video game I've ever played, I have never in my life seen a game developer take a concept for a game, change it so radically and so much. Like, they take the concept of Jak 1 and they change it so much in Jak 2. The only thing that's the same is the moves, the mechanics of your character. You know, you got the punch, the spin attack, the double jump, the triple jump, which is, it's not really called a triple jump, it's just a technique which you can use to jump higher. The high jump, the ground stomp. You've still got all of Jak's moves. That hasn't changed. It's the atmosphere that's changed. It's the environment. It's the new mechanics that are added to the game. It's it's even what the game can be defined as, because as I described Jak and Daxter, it's Jak 2, it's an action-adventure third-person platformer game. However, I could also go as far as call Jak 2 a sandbox game, because unlike Jak 1, which I guess you could kind of call a sandbox game, but it was very linear. It was very, very linear as to how you did things, because certain areas weren't unlocked until later, and the sandbox feature really wasn't that apparent, because it was just generic characters that you had to do certain missions for. They had no names, and it was very simplistic in its design of the original game. Jak 2 is almost like a Grand Theft Auto. Some people have compared Jak 2 to Grand Theft Auto, in that Haven City, which is the main setting of Jak 2, the city that you get thrust into, it's open world. First of all, the map of Haven City is fucking ginormous. It's ridiculously big. You can go to so many different parts, and the parts of the game of Haven City are diverse. You've got, this countryside where you've got plants and stuff that are being farmed. You've got the inner city, you've got the slums, which is like the kind of rundown parts. You've got the ports, which is like the water portions of the game. What else have you got? You've got volcanic sections, you've got mountainous sections, and then there's areas outside the city that you go to for missions. So you've got high mountains, areas that are really high in the air that involve air combat. You've got, you got factories. It's really diverse. The environment in this game, in every place you go, is so freaking diverse. In Jak 1, there were only a set number of areas that you could go to. Spider Cave, Volcanic Crater, Snowy Mountain. There were a good number, but they were very linear, and those areas, it was basically, okay, those areas each contain a certain number of power cells. Basically, you go to those areas, get the precursor orbs, get the power cells, trade the power cells in to get to the next area, then defeat the boss, then you beat the game. That was the central thing behind Jak 1. That's why it's easier to do a speedrun of Jak 1, because all you really have to do to beat Jak 1 is get enough power cells. 72 power cells gets you to the final area of the game, and if you get those, then you can progress forward. No problem, okay? The only thing that stands in your way from going further is the driving stages and the boss fights, which are between the new areas. Jak 2 isn't like that. It has a system very much, I'd say, to Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City, where there's little icons on your map, and you go to these icons to receive missions from actual characters, which you continuously do missions for. However, unlike Grand Theft Auto, the missions that you get from these characters are diverse and unique. It's not the same shit over and over and over again, okay? Think of the missions from Torn. Torn's having you do a diverse number of missions, alright? It's not just do the same task over and over again. It's, maybe in this segment you're platforming to the top of the tower. Okay, in this segment you're running from a tank. In this segment you have to infiltrate a fortress. In this segment you're going to a lost town and defeating a bunch of monsters. Like, it's very diverse. In one segment you gotta take down a bunch of cruisers, a bunch of ships. It's ridiculous, the diversity of these missions. It's to the point where you feel like it's refreshing, and it continuously immerses you in the world. You're like, wow, that mission was new. I want to see what the next new mission is. I want to see what the next new mission is. And Torn's not the only person you get missions from. There's a wide range of characters and diverse characters that you get missions from in this game that keeps the pace of the game moving to a level where, again, you want to keep playing the game and you want to continuously see what's going to happen. So the open world is almost like a Grand Theft Auto. And let me tell you, I remember one article who reviewed Jak 2 saying that Naughty Dog got like they pushed the PlayStation. Naughty Dog designed Jak 2 and used the PlayStation 2 engine in a way that the PlayStation 2 engine has never been used before. That was one way that they put it. It was either Naughty Dog or a guy who was interviewing Naughty Dog. But when you play Jak 2, the graphics, just like, you could see Haven City as this open world. There are no load times. As you move from area to area, there are no loading times between areas. Now compare that to Grand Theft Auto Vice City. When you go from island, and I played Grand Theft Auto Vice City just a couple of months ago for my countdown to Grand Theft Auto 5. In Grand Theft Auto Vice City and in GTA 3, when you move to different islands, the game actually loads. It stops and it says, welcome to this island, and it brings up a loading screen, and you have to wait a couple of minutes, and then you can move to the next area. And let's be honest, the graphics aren't really that impressive. Like when you punch someone and you run them over, it's the same animation. The graphics of the buildings look kind of weak. The car it's generic. It looks very, very generic, the graphics in Grand Theft Auto. I am going as far to say, and this is the truth, I honestly feel this is the truth, you may disagree with me, the graphics in Jak 2 of the open world, of the sandbox gameplay, those graphics are more realistic than GTA 3, Vice City, and I would even go as far to say that they're better looking than San Andreas. Now, I know San Andreas is way larger than Jak 2's map ever is. You know, I know it's larger, and I understand that there's limitations in the fact that San Andreas is a giant map. But from that technical aspect, Jak 2 has an insanely detailed world. The way that there's people in this world are actually citizens. Now, I know the citizens are generic. Some citizens are skinny. There's some fat citizens. There's some girl citizens. You'll run out of character models for the citizens fairly quickly. You'll see about, what, 5 or 6 unique character models in Jak 2, I believe. That's how many there are. There's like a fat guy, a skinny girl, a different kind of guy, a different kind of girl, and you'll see these average citizens just with the elf ears walking around the city. They don't add anything to the game, they just walk around, but the fact that they're in the game for a PlayStation 2 game that was released in 2003, that's nuts. And in addition to them, you've got the Crimson Guards, which are basically, if you would compare this to Grand Theft Auto, they're the quote-unquote cops of the game. This game actually has, in a way, a wanted system. It's almost like a 2 wanted system. Basically, if you kill a civilian, or you punch a Crimson Guard, or agitate the guards in some way, you will be hunted by them. And they'll try to shoot you with they'll start out by trying to electrocute you with these electric guns, and if you continuously attack them, then they'll upgrade to rifles and the Hellcat cruisers, which are the ships, the hover ships will start to attack you. So there's 2 levels to the wanted system. Now, there's really no like pay and spray kind of way to escape them. Well, actually there are, but it's not, the game never tells you about it. If you go to the place where you learn the Dark Jak powers at the Oracle, if you go to him, you always lose your wanted level. Same if you go to a hideout, like where you can get a mission, like if you go to Torn's hideout, or if you go to Crew's hut, or his bar, you can always lose the Crimson Guards. So there are little tricks, but not everybody knows those tricks. Oh, or the gun course, if you go to the gun course, you can lose the Crimson Guards. So the system of the guards, like, you know, the wanted system, it's not as diverse and unique as Grand Theft Auto's, where you've got cops and SWAT and military. Really, that's not necessary, though, you know, and that's not what Jak's going for. Grand Theft Auto, in and of itself, it's not a platformer, it's a sandbox game. But Jak 2 went the extra mile of being an action-adventure and a platformer and a sandbox game. In my opinion, this game can't be... I feel like it should have its own name for what it is, because it's a combination of all these different types of games, and in my opinion, it can't just be one. It's a mix of a whole bunch. And because of that, I feel that it should have like one overall name. Like, I don't even know. I don't know if there is a name that could properly describe what Jak 2 is, just because of how unique the game is. So that is the diverse aspect of the game. Now, I've talked a lot about this. One last thing I'd like to say about the diversity is, I've talked about the mission diversity. I like to talk about the functionality of the game in terms of enemies, in terms of new abilities that are added to this game, because there are a good number of them that are added to the game. In terms of enemies, there are a broad range of new enemies in this game, and that is one of the things that I said about, this is how a sequel is meant to be made. From Jak 1, where you had, you know, the lurkers, and you had all the monsters serving Gaul and Maya, I don't think any of those enemies come back in Jak 2 as enemies. The only I think the Lurkers and the Yak Cows are the only two characters, animals, that come back in Jak 2, but they're both allies. The Lurkers are allies, and the Yak Cows, the Yak Cows were never enemies. They were just fucking Yak Cows. They're in pens, but they still make an appearance in the game for reasons that I won't spoil, but those are the only two characters or animals that come back. Everything else is completely new. The Crimson Guards are enemies, and there are many variations of Crimson Guards. In this game, when they give you an enemy, they have many, many variations of the enemies that make them unique. You've got the Crimson Guards in the red armor that have the electrical spears. You've got the Crimson Guards that have the guns, the rifles that shoot the red rounds. You've got Crimson Guards in some stages that have grenade launchers. You've got Crimson Guards that fly these little hover vehicles where they shoot almost machine guns from this vehicle. You've got the yellow Crimson Guards, which are basically the same as the red ones, only these guards take way more hits and are much more powerful. They're like elite fighting units, and you see them in the harder stages. As you play the game more, you'll see them in the harder stages of the game. And the Crimson Guards, as you fight Baron Praxis, these are the main enemies you'll be fighting for a main part of the game. But you'll also begin to fight I'd say the main overall enemy, the Metalheads. Sorry, the Metalheads. The Metalheads, I'd say, are the overall enemy more than the Crimson Guards, because they're the biggest threat in the game, and there are so many variations of the Metalheads. You've got the regular Metalheads, you've got... I know there's unique names for them, but I'm not remembering all of them off the top of the head. There's the flying one, there's the hunter ones that turn invisible. There are ones that can, like, fly on the ground. There are, I'd say, like, at least over 10 different variations of these enemies in this game. And that's incredible. It's really incredible because it doesn't feel like you're fighting the same enemy over and over and over. In a lot of these games, let's face it, Halo, it feels like you're fighting the same fucking enemy. It's always the elites or the grunts or the jackals or the Prometheans were the newest enemy in Halo 4, but let's face it, you still had the fucking Covenant in the game. So it felt like just back to the fucking Halo 2 and 3 days when we were shooting these enemies up. So with Jak 2, you've got a huge diversity of enemies. Crimson Guards on one side and the Metalheads on the other side. And then you've got the boss battles. The boss battles are all different. They're all different, and it's not like you have to use one strategy for every boss battle. Every boss battle you fight differently because they're all different, except two boss battles are the same person, but you fight them in totally different ways. Baron Praxis you fight twice, and the second time you fight Praxis, you can't even use your weapons to attack him. You actually have to use the bombs that he supplies you with. So every single boss fight is different in how you approach it, which is another way that the game is unique and diverse. It's not the same generic, okay, do this, rinse and repeat, do this, rinse and repeat. No, it's not like that. You actually have to have strategy to play this game, to fight the enemies and fight the bosses, and that's why I love it. It's diversity on top of diversity on top of diversity on top of great gameplay on top of diversity. It's fucking like, it's biting into a sandwich and it's great. It's such a great experience. And now I'm gonna tell you what really... Now, actually, before I get to the main thing that I really love about Jak 2, I'll get to the story, okay? As a writer, as a creative writer who likes to write stories, I value a story more than anything. In a video game, in a movie, in a book, whatever it is, I love a good story. Jak 1 had a pretty generic story. All you were doing was kind of just moving through the world. You know, it had a good story, but it was just not... It was like, okay, like, you beat the game and you're like, alright, we stopped Gaul and Maya, and alright, Daxter didn't get saved, but it's alright. Not much happened, and it left off on a cliffhanger at the end of Jak 1, which really pissed off a lot of people, but, Halo 2 did that as well, but that's alright. But anyway, you get to Jak 2, and it puts just like I said with that what was the example I used, where they take the concept of Jak 1 and they fucking nuke it? They do the same thing here. They don't make it the same as the first game, and that's what I love. That's the main point. If you can take anything away from this video, Jak 2 is nothing like the first game. It is a completely new experience that works. And it works. It works, and it works well. Jak 2's story is different for a number of reasons. First of all, in Jak 1, Jak never talked. He never talked except for attacking. If you did an attack, he would make a sound effect for the attack. In Jak 2, he actually talks. He gains a voice. In the first mission, in the first cutscene, he speaks because of certain things that have happened to him over the course of the game, and his dialogue is intricate to the story of the game. So it's a new mechanic. I know some people might not have liked that because they wanted a Gordon Freeman Jack who's the silent hero, but that's not what Jack is, and that's not what Jack becomes. It's not his character to be Gordon Freeman, all right? Sorry, all you Half-Life fans, but that's not Jack. So, hold on, let me get a tissue. Oh, when you do videos this intense, it makes your nose run. So the story is vastly different. Now, there might be some spoilers, but basically the story of Jak 2 is that the Rift Ring that you find in the first one is actually a time machine. That big white light you see at the end of Jak 1, it's actually a time machine. And unbeknownst to Jak, Daxter, Kira, and Samos, they actually go into the future. Haven City is where Sandover Village and the whole world of Jak 1 used to be. And it brings not only a nostalgia feeling to the people who play Jak 1, for you to see that one level where you see Samos' hut all destroyed, and then for a minute you look around at this place called Dead Town, and you look around at the metalheads and the broken buildings and the radioactive water, and you're like, holy shit. This used to be the beloved town where I got power cells and scout flies and did all those great missions for the mayor and all those stupid generic cartoony characters. Holy crap. Like, it hits a heartstring just because if you were attached to Jak 1 and beat that whole game and went through that whole experience, you almost feel what Jak is feeling, because Jak, his whole childhood, grew up in Sandover Village, and for him and Daxter to come into the future and see what it becomes, it's like, wow. Like, it hits a heartstring, and it hits it hard, and the audience immediately feels that. And that one cutscene, it's one of my favorite cutscenes, when they look at that and Jak's like, we're in the future, Dax, and you see that hut and you realize, wow, they're actually in the future. And it's funny, fans have actually made like fan fictions of trying to find, you know, comparisons of the old area, like, oh, Sentinel Beach is the water slums, and, you know, they try to compare like past areas to future areas. It's not confirmed, but pretty much the only thing confirmed is that the Dead Town is Sandover Village, but beyond that we don't know. So the story is great, and it doesn't just stop there. You have characters who are there in ways that you never would have expected, like Samos. Who would have ever thought that Samos actually was from the future? Jak was from the future, and they have to go to the past. It's this whole time travel thing that just fucks with your head. You come out of it just mind blown. I don't want to say the whole story of Jak 2. But it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing what they do with this story, way more than they ever did with Jak 1. And it fits the world, it fits the diversity of the missions I was talking about, and it fits everything. It all wraps together in one big pack, and not to mention the musical score, which I used a little bit in this video. The musical score by Mark Mothersbaugh, who did the musical score with his group Mateto Mizuki, did a great job with this soundtrack. He used darker music as opposed to the first game where it was kind of cheery music. In this game, it's dark music. The Haven City walking theme is a dark theme because you feel Jak's loneliness of being in this new world, not knowing what to do, serving this crime underlord, going against the Baron, trying to save his friends, trying to understand this new future he's in, the fact that his younger self is in this world and has all these connections, and he has this connection to this eco power, and that he's battling this dark presence inside of him. It's really emotional, and the music affects it, and again, all the other aspects of the game affect it. Now, one thing I think I missed in relation to the diversity of the enemies is the diversity in the gameplay. Just like the platforming, you now have new aspects to the game. You have dark powers, with Jak now being a dark Jak. And you also have the addition of guns. There are 4 unique guns, which are basically based off of a rifle, a shotgun, a machine gun, and then almost like a bazooka. But they have their variations that make them their individual guns. And you use them in this game. And with the addition of the racing themes and the additions of the just normal combat themes added to the platforming, it adds another layer of diversity. Diversity is the key word that we must get across in this video. It is the one thing that makes this game better than, I'd say, most games that I've ever played. I don't think there is a game that I would play more than Jak 2. And it's funny because for me as a child, Jak 2 had replayability because you can actually unlock cheat codes if you get a number of precursor orbs. So I'd always activate the invincibility cheat code and then just kill Crimson Guards for hours. They infinitely respawn just like the cops would in GTA, and you can just kill them for hours. It's fun because the vehicle physics effects are really good. The explosions are good. It's fun to do. The way the guards go after you, it's a blast. At least I had fun for years just blowing up Crimson Guards and shit with friends. I have so many memories of doing that in New Jersey. That was another way the game was replayable, in my opinion. Now, let me conclude this video, because this video has been going on for 30 minutes. Let me conclude this video with the one thing that makes Jak 2 a great game. The last thing that makes it a great game. But also the thing that a lot of people have criticized the game for. Its difficulty, okay? I will admit that Jak 2 is a very, very difficult game. It has a very high learning curve, okay? Even if you were good at Jak 1, you have no idea what you're in for Jak 2, okay? And I'll tell you that because during my HD collection playthrough of Jak 2, there were some times when I was failing at missions repeatedly because I haven't played Jak. At that point, I hadn't played Jak 2 in years, and I was kind of rusty on my skills at the game. So I was forgetting certain things, like the mission where you're doing the eco well. I forgot where the last eco well was, and I was getting angry. And then the races are kind of difficult because the AI catches up to you quite frequently. One race that people rage at a lot is the one against Errol, where you got to race through the city because the AI of the game notoriously catches up to you. If you make one mistake, you basically lose the entire race. There's no checkpoints, and the race is pretty long. So people have criticized the game for not having many checkpoints and being very, very difficult. Now, as a kid, that's what made Jak 2 such a long experience for me. Now, I don't know what spectrum I'm on because I don't know if I would say, oh, the game is better because the game is longer / more improved because it's difficult, which makes it long. Or if people say, no, you need more missions, more content to make the game more worthwhile and longer as a retail purchase. In my opinion, more missions make the game more generic. Now, Jak 2 has a large number of missions, and again, they don't get stale because you're doing different things for 99% of those missions. There are a few missions where you repeat the same tasks, but they're very few and far between. So, I know when I was little, I said that the high learning curve of the game was probably something that frustrated me. Even when I was young, I used to rage at the game and get really frustrated, not knowing what I was doing, blaming the game for not explaining things correctly, and maybe in some regards the game does give little instructions on how to do things, and some areas aren't explained to the best of their ability. But overall, I think the difficulty adds to the value of the game rather than detracts from it. And I know that might be a controversial statement to say, and I know there's some people on forums who haven't even beaten the game. So in that regard, I can understand maybe a little bit of your frustration. Again, I'm going to admit, as a kid, I struggled with a lot of the levels in that game. So I'm not going to say that I did master level runs when I was freaking 8 years old, because that's not the truth. And even people who are like my age playing this game are still having trouble with it. If you're playing it for the first time, I can completely understand because it does have that high learning curve and is unfair and difficult in some areas. So I will admit that, but I think it adds to the game more than it detracts from it. And again, the game is so beautifully crafted, and of all the things that I've said, I don't really think it's that much of a drawback for the game. Okay? So there might have been some areas that I might have missed. I know I didn't get to everything, but again, the game is so expansive and big. There is replayability actually, as well. There's hero mode. If you get 200 precursor orbs, the last secret you can unlock is hero mode, which allows you to replay the game at a harder difficulty setting with all the weapons, and you can unlock cheat codes at a low level. So if you ever wanted to go back and give yourself a challenge, there's replayability. So this game, I just think it was just the pinnacle of what Naughty Dog could do, just graphic-wise at that time for the PS2, story-wise for the story that they spun, conceptually for the characters and the worlds and the setting and the dynamics of the game that they placed, it was something to be respected, really. And I think as game developers move higher in their development of games, I think it's something that really needs to be respected, what was done with this game. That's one of the biggest reasons why people have been demanding another Jak game, because we're looking for that level of innovation on a next-gen console. That's really what we're looking for. And Naughty Dog has admitted that they've tried in the past and that it hasn't worked, just because they're at this point where they've done 3 Uncharted games, 1 Last of Us, and I think their thinking is in a different place now, and that upsets me, because I don't know if we'll ever see the day when Jak and Daxter will return, but it seems like their thinking is in a different mindset. You know, they've gone the route of generic third-person shooters, and it's unfortunate to say, but you know, I played Uncharted 3 and The Last of Us. A lot of segments of those games was just generic third-person shooting mechanics. I mean, it was unique to its own system of what they built. And I'm not saying by any means those games aren't good, but it was nothing like the shooting system and the platforming that Jak 2 had. Jak 2's system was unique. It was different from anything else anyone had done. I can name at least 3 other games that kind of do the shooting thing that Uncharted does. You got, what, Fuse, Gears of War that do it like that, with the third-person shooting with, you know, machine guns, shotguns, you know, close quarter melee combat. It just, I felt it was generic, and it didn't point to the level of diversity that they had shown in their previous games. So, that is my full in-depth review and full in-depth look at Jak 2. I probably missed some things and or skipped around a little bit in this video. I do apologize if I did, but I was trying to say so much about a game that's so amazing, and I just didn't have the whole allotted amount of time to do it. I mean, I'm already in over 30 minutes on this video and stuff, but I tried to add some interest and spark by putting some screenshots and photos and also some music in the background, which actually I have on my iPod, which I typically listen to just because it helps for me with my creative writing and other things that I do, even with schoolwork sometimes. So thank you very much for viewing this video. I still, to this day, love Jak 2. I have the original, the one that I've owned for over 10 years. I still have it for the PlayStation 2. I'll never get rid of it. And I still have my PlayStation 2, so if I ever wanted to play it, I could just pop it in. Don't have it with me, unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, but that's alright. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Happy birthday to me, because I am making this video for my birthday, for tomorrow. And that is about it. So I'll let the current clip close us out, and I'll see you guys later for some more footage. Peace.